Welcome to the Too Busy to Eat show. I'm Greg Zuffalato, the host of this show and the founder of Too Busy to Eat, the protein bar company. I encourage you to check out our website, toobusytoeat.com. Check it out. Check our protein bars out. Use the discount code TBTE show to get a discount on those bars. And there's all kinds of information too. We have a blog, we have a YouTube show, we have the podcast. So check it out. Now, for our guest today, I say this a lot, but this lady is fascinating, and I have to use my cheat sheet on her name. It's Mihaela Telecan. She is originally from Romania, living in Florida now. Her background is crazy. She was first a veterinarian. So she worked as a veterinarian. Now she's a registered dietitian and nutritionist. She's got so many certifications. If I listed them, it would take me an hour. She's amazing. And she does she does really personalized, science-based lifestyle programs. So she coaches people through a wide range of different things they're trying to overcome. She helps people with mindset, with fitness, and obviously on the diet side or lifestyle side. So I can't wait for you to listen. Well, welcome, Mihaela. I can't tell you how excited I am that you're on the show, and I'm excited that you are in Romania and you're recording this episode. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So we got to chat a little bit, and I got to read about you some, but you have a fascinating history of how you got to where you are now. Why don't you give us a little bit of that journey? Tell us what you went through to get to the position you're in now.
Absolutely. I would love to. If I go too long, stop me because I can talk forever.
Well, it's very interesting. So you have a lot to say.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's not going to be boring. So I can say that my upbringing was different than most people watching this interview probably had. I was raised or grew up in a communist country in Romania. And by virtue of that, basically we had no food industry. Right. So everything we ate was what my mother made fresh from what we cultivated in our garden, where I am right now, actually, in my parents'
Oh my gosh, yes.
So I was very accustomed to eating everything fresh, home cooked, and I was healthy growing up. My first realization that something wasn't going right with my body was when I was 20 years old, and I was actually studying in veterinary school. Yes. It was a physiology class, learning about digestion and transit time, and I realized that I was constipated, that I wasn't going to the bathroom like every 10 days or so. I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
this can be good, I'm 20 years old, and you learn about the problems with being constipated and predisposition for cancer and all that. So that was actually the first time I went and I admitted myself to the hospital. Before that, I didn't go in a hospital. I was, we have colds and you step in nails and all these childhood things, but not being in a hospital. So I went to a hospital and I asked them to check my digestive tract to see what's going on. Why was I so constipated? So long story short, I had some exams. They diagnosed me with megacolon.
Okay.
Which means I had a large intestine, and the recommendation or the solution was to have surgery to make it smaller.
Right.
And everything will be fine. And I was like, thank you, but no thank you. for sure. It didn't sound right to me. I have a whole body. I'm not going to go chop it up, hoping that's going to be better than it was before. So that's when I started my quest to fix my gut, and I started paying attention to, what I was eating, how I was feeling. So that was in my 20s. And that's what made me go towards vegetarianism.
Okay.
Being constipated, didn't do well with meat. So by the time I moved to United States, I was 28 years old. And within 2 years, I became completely vegan, raw vegan, actually. Okay. So for 3 years, I was raw vegan. At the beginning, it was wonderful. I started to have more energy. Now, my constipation, no matter what I did, how much bran fiber I took, and whatever I did, it did not make a big change.
Wow.
Not even when I was vegan, or tons of fiber, eating only like when I was vegan, raw vegan was like the cleanest food ever you can think, right?
Yeah.
No sugar, no flours, no dairy, nothing. just vegetables and fruits, way too many fruits. Right, which later on, I realized that predisposed me to gestational diabetes. But
right.
hey, we do what we think is best, right?
That's right.
So for a period of 10 years, so I kind of, I went in cycles of 10 years. 10 years, I was approaching now my 30s. I realized that being vegetarian wasn't good for me. I started to develop, like, I was living in Miami. Everybody was sweating hot and I was freezing cold.
Oh gosh.
Right. Like, so my thyroid started to malfunction. I even went and had tests because I was exposed to Chernobyl when we were in Romania. I was 14 at the time when so I thought, maybe, now I feel the effects of Chernobyl.
Right.
I had my glands here in my neck. They were swollen. The doctor said, maybe that's how you are. I said, it can't be. It wasn't like this before, So I had all sorts of weird symptoms. Turned yellow, was cold, started to bloat. My digestion wasn't good. So eventually, I realized that the way I was eating wasn't helping. And when I gave birth to my son, actually when I was pregnant and I had the test for gestational diabetes, they do the screening.
Yes.
It came like a big surprise.
Right.
Because I was lean.
Yeah.
I never had weight issues. That was another like weird thing, because most everybody, they eat a certain way, they gain weight or lose weight. I was always lean. I was always active. People would see like, this is the picture of the healthiest pregnant woman.
Right.
And here I didn't pass the screening test for gestational diabetes. I was still vegetarian. So eating way too many carbs.
Right.
Whether it was fruit or it came from sweet potato or from bread. At the time I was still eating grains. Wasn't good. So from that point on, I started to test my blood sugars. And being a diabetes educator and a dietitian, I knew, carbohydrates have something to do with the level of sugar in your blood.
Right.
So I did not give up all carbs at the time, but I reduced the amount, and I was testing blood sugars to make sure it stayed somehow within normal limits.
Yes. Yeah.
And about a year and a half after I gave birth to my son, I was still in my quest to heal the gut. I had leaky gut and dysbiosis, many food sensitivities. So eventually I came across, in my searches, the GAPS nutritional protocol. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was developed by a neurologist, Dr. Natasha Campbell is her name. And I listened to an interview, Dr. Mercola interviewed her. And it really resonated with me. And then I went and I looked up her work. I bought her book and I applied to certify with her.
Oh, yes.
And I had the privilege to meet her in Chicago to take her course. And that day, I remember, was November 3rd, I believe was 3rd to 6th was the course. That day, at the end of the first day of the course, I said, if this works the way it sounds, and it all made sense, like biologically, physiologically, all that, I am going to give up to my, idea of being at least vegetarian. At the time, I was lacto-ovo-vegetarian. I wasn't strict vegan, but still, nevertheless, a vegetarian. So that was the day when I said, I've got to go back to eating animal foods, which I was raised with.
Right.
And that was my introduction to the low carb world, basically. Elimination of grains and starches and legumes for most part.
Yeah.
And that made a huge difference in my health, in my mind. Like, that's something I didn't mention. All the time hungry.
Yes, yes.
When I was vegan, and I was active. I wasn't
Right,
like I was exercising like all the time, having to think about what food I have to pack with me because I didn't want to eat vending machine food,
yeah,
right?
right.
So that was so stressful. And then making sure to get the food on time so I wouldn't want to snap at somebody or,
Right,
you
right.
know, I wasn't the nicest person if I didn't eat.
Blood sugar drops. You, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Like the typical ups and downs
Yeah,
of blood sugar. So, and my mood, especially after I had my
yeah,
son,
yeah,
like the blues turned into
yeah,
almost like depression. The
yeah.
point that my husband like, maybe we should see a psychiatrist. I don't know. We're not going to see a psychiatrist. I've got to fix this with natural approach.
Right.
So I believe the reintroduction of animal fat
Yes.
for me was the biggest
Biggest
thing.
change. Right.
Right. Aside from getting rid of carbs, because I was having way too many as a vegetarian, I think the biggest impact, I could feel it was within weeks.
Yeah.
My mood got better. I was stable. I wasn't obsessed about food. What am I going to eat next? And from there, very smoothly, I transitioned into intermittent fasting. It came natural.
Yes. Yes.
And 4 years later, we are 2017, now 2015. So 3 years later, I was actually, my son was growing a little bit, so I was back on a bike. That was one of my things. I loved long distance bike rides.
Yes, yes.
So I went back and I did an MS ride.
Oh,
and I've done before as a vegan an MS ride, which was 75 miles each day, and then a century ride.
Oh, wow.
100 miles.
That's far.
And I tell you, when I finished those rides, I felt like somebody took a bulldozer and ran me over like several times. I mean, I did it, and it's a good feeling when you finish, but I was exhausted. And of course, many rest stops and bars. But this time, I got on the bike. I had the bulletproof coffee before. I had 2 liters of water with me, and I stopped, got off the bike at the 85-mile mark.
Wow.
And I was blown away. Me riding the bike, I was like, when am I going to get tired? when I will stop? I didn't need to stop for a pee break.
Right.
And I still had water. I wasn't hungry, so I kept going.
Wow. 85 miles later. Wow.
85 miles, I came off the bike. Then last year, I did it again. This time was 95 miles.
Wow.
So maybe I'll do it this year again. I don't know. I haven't trained, and not with very much training. That's what's interesting. Because I don't have the time to, at least, you know, it needs to be at least 50 miles bike ride one time a week to be able to do that.
Right.
So that's kind of like the journey, you know, going from a relatively healthy person, having a period of, which in my case, I believe going vegan and vegetarian did not serve me any good.
Right.
It weakened my constitution. It got me to the point of having severe leaky gut and all that. And coming back now, where I'm eating very similar to what I ate when I grew up, minus the grains, like corn and starches. I don't do any of that.
Right.
But I do eat the fermented foods and organ meat. Everything that I was used to. So that's why GAPS protocol, when I learned about it, which is so heavy on meat and bone stock and fermented foods and organ meat, it was like, wow, I'm coming back home.
This is right back to my childhood.
Right, exactly.
Isn't it funny that that's a lot of times that old,
it's like going
back to nature.
Back to nature. And that's kind of like my story, like very
fantastic. Well, so now all those experiences you've had have now lead you to be able to help others. And I was blown away. When I was reading through your information, I loved a few things stood out is when you're helping people, you say it's personalized. So very, there's not a one size fits all, but science-based nutrition program. And it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. Those are all things that really stood out to me. And so tell us a little bit about where you are with that now as you help others that have maybe similar problems or different problems that they're working through.
Absolutely. So it's true, it's personalized. although I do use low carb as an approach, as a big umbrella.
Just to set this up too, it's you do coaching, you do coaching, nutrition coaching through. Yeah. I want to make sure people know that that's you'll do.
Right. I didn't say anything about my profession. Maybe I could have said I didn't start as a dietitian. Right. I started as a veterinarian, which as I was going through school, I said, I am never going to be a vet. I just couldn't see myself a vet, especially here in my time, in my generation, mostly were large animals, you know, cows and horses. I'm like, oh, this is not good. But anyway, I finished the school. I worked for about 10 years as a vet as I was doing my master's in nutrition studies.
Yes.
So after finishing dietetics, I went more towards functional medicine, nutrition, functional nutrition, and coaching. So I'm not prescribing diets. I coach.
Yes.
So in my coaching work, I do use the whole foods approach. That's number one criteria.
Yep.
And that's why it's important for people to understand it's whole foods. It's not healthy packaged foods that food industry makes us think it's healthy.
Right.
It's not that. It's a big umbrella of low carb. It's a spectrum of low carbohydrate, therapeutic diets I use. I'm going to use the word diet, but not in the meaning of what you think of diet, like going on and off of a program. So it depends. If someone has diabetes, we've got to be very precise to how many grams of carbs and protein, and the remaining should be fat. One that has to manage blood sugar or wants to manage blood sugar without drugs should be on. So that implies logging and being exact to what you eat, testing blood sugar before, after, testing blood ketones, so you know if you are in the fat burning zone and things like that. If I work with a person that has leaky gut or an autoimmune condition, and we don't see issues around insulin resistance, and we don't have to be as strict with the carbohydrates, I may not even have them log the food. We just go big food groups. Let's eliminate all grains because we know they're extremely inflammatory. Let's eliminate starches. I allow, or I shouldn't say allow. It's not like the one that allows. I recommend following the GAPS exclusion food, which allows for few starches like winter squashes and lentils, for example. As they have less starch, it's been more digestible, not so difficult to digest, and glycemic index a little bit or load, maybe a little bit lower. So I'm okay with that, for example, or fruits are still okay. So it depends what the person,
the situation,
what's the nutritional goal we are trying to reach. If it's an athlete, certainly they, according to their activity level, they may go to 70 or 100 grams of carbs a day with no problem. But then you still want to be precise with the protein, and you want to test the ketones to know you are in that fat burning zone. And fuel on fat, train the body to fuel on fat as long as possible.
Yes. So that's your approach, to really take somebody, personalize it, walk them through. You also mentioned there's a level of accountability, and that's what you provide, right? Do you do periodic check-ins with them or regular meetings?
Absolutely. In my coaching programs, I meet with clients weekly. I actually use Zoom as a meeting platform. I think it's convenient for everybody. You know, people don't have to drive and be stressed in traffic before they get to me.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's more comfortable. And we meet weekly. I like them to fill a weekly journal before we meet. If we log food, I like chronometer. For logging, and I link them to my account so I can review their logs before. They have access to me in between. So we meet weekly, but in between sessions, they can anytime contact me if they have a question. I use Evernote for our communication. So I feel like accountability is I don't know, more than 50%
Right. Yeah.
when it comes to following through, because when it's a lot at the beginning, it's a
Yes.
big learning curve, and
Right.
people often can feel overwhelmed. If they don't have the confidence that they can do it alone, they don't have the support system around them.
Right.
It's important to know that at least they have one person that they can trust, they can talk with anytime they wish. So I feel
Yes,
that's very
huge.
important.
Yeah. Yeah. When I saw personalized, science-based lifestyle, and then accountability, I'm like, that's it. Those are all the key
Yeah.
things to changing your life through eating. That's it.
Because it's lifestyle. In the end, it's not a diet. What we eat changes as we grow older, right? As we change our activity, as the season changes. So I feel like my role is to educate people to understand that, for them to be open-minded enough to know that what they eat today may not be good or the same in a year from now, maybe a variation of.
Sure.
But then to add movement, to make sure sleep is, because that's super important. And I think the biggest work is the mindset.
Yeah. Right. They have, yes.
That's the biggest work that we have to do before we can go to the farmer's market or, cut that cabbage or whatever. You gotta believe that this is what you need to do, that you can do it, and set goals and all that. Mindset work is huge. I work a lot around that.
Well, for it to work, it's got to be, you got to believe it. You got to know why you're doing it, that it's going to work.
Exactly. Why? That's the big.
So now you have somebody listening that is, maybe in a spot where you were at one point. You were unhealthy, trying to figure out, if you were to give just one piece of advice to somebody that's out there listening to say, hey, please take one step towards better health, what would that be?
I'm sure it will be around food. And around food, it will be around carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And if it's to start, like how you break the fast.
Yeah.
If you eat at 6 a.m., it's fine. But how you break that overnight fast? What do you start the day with? If you choose to eat at 12 midday, it's fine. But what do you eat first?
Yeah.
Just pay attention to that first meal, because that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So if one wants to get more out of their day and have more energy, it's whole foods, it's carbohydrates, and it's how you break the fast.
Yes. Okay. That's great. So what would you recommend to break a fast? Is it different is it personalized, different for anybody?
Some people may do okay with a shake that has enough greens, fiber, and maybe some almond butter in there for the protein, enough fat.
Yeah.
But keep the carbs low. So I think it's finding the balance between the carbohydrates, the fat, and the protein. To have enough fat and just enough protein, and carbohydrates. The lower you can go, the better.
Yes.
And just be patient, because taste buds are flexible.
Right.
So if you think you don't like it today, try it again tomorrow and again and again, because the taste buds will lower the threshold for sweet.
Right.
And eventually you will like it. And that's why I'm not a big fan of too many artificial sweeteners.
Right.
Because it never lets you break that
absolutely, that cycle,
craving for sweet.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, I love what you're doing. I love to hear your journey. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time all the way in Romania to come on the Too Busy to Eat show. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.